Good morning, everyone. And so my English probably is worse than your one, so because I'm clearly from Italy. And but I'm sure that we will figure it out today, and that we can understand and enjoy this presentation. So first of all, I have to thank all my co-authors, including Jill, that is listed here, and who actually helped me in developing and publish this paper. So today I'm going to tell you why transport is a welfare issue. Probably if you are here, you know why. Then I'm going to explain you what were the aim of the study and how we did it. Then clearly we will talk about our findings, and we try to understand or interpret them, and then clearly some conclusion, future goals, and recommendation on how to transport our horses. So, why transport is considered a welfare concern? First of all, transport is part of the life of the horses. So it's really rare that you have a horses which has never been transported once in life. So it's part of his life. Actually, horses are the species after humans they are transported the most in their life, and by any means, so ferry, ship, plane, and roads. And we define transport as a mosaic of stressors. What does it mean? That there are really so many factors which might lead to distress and stress in the horses, which actually, this is why is interesting for me to study the effect of transport and try to figure out what are those stressors, in what phase of transport they are, and actually how I can minimize those stressors. So first of all, do you know how many phases are within transport? So how would you split transport? In how many phases? No idea? So 5, perfect, well done. Because we have basically the preparation for transport, which many people don't think about. Then we have the loading, very scary phase. Then we have the transport in itself. Then we have the unloading. And then actually, in the majority of the case, those poor horses are changing the environment. No? So we have the last phase, which is the new environment, which is still considered a phase of the transport. So we have to figure out what are the stressors in each phase of transport, and we should manage those stressors better. This is the key part. So it's considered a welfare concern because it might lead to behavioral and health problems. And clearly, what we should try to do with the regulation is try to suggest minimum standard to protect the welfare of the horses, basically from before the transport until they actually arrive at the final destination. So what are the effects of transport, and what are the possible health issues? There are really many health issues, which could be they start really minimal, like just a slight dehydration due to the transport, which still make house poor performance. So your horses jump very well home, then you go to the competition and it doesn't perform anymore so good. It could be a slight dehydration caused by transport that you don't really, that gave any possibility to the horse to recover. But the problems can be more serious. We can have some diarrhea, and with the diarrhea, it can be just because the horse is really nervous, so you might have a really short diarrhea, but unfortunately, they can also develop gastric ulceration due to transport, or even enterocolitis, which is a bad diarrhea, which can be fatal. Then we can have series of colic due to the transport, and many respiratory problems, and the worst one is the transport pneumonia, which can be fatal for the horses if it's not diagnosed properly and promptly. Then muscle problems, injuries, and often We can also have laminitis. The problem is that not many people associate the laminitis with the transport because, as pneumonia, those problems might not happen soon after the journey. So many people don't associate them with actually the real cause, which was the journey. And unfortunately, some horses may even die by transportation. And what about the behavioral problem? So clearly, there are some horses that, they find the first time they load because they don't know at all the transport, but something gets wrong. And again, we said that the transport is stressful, so it's really hard to make the transport a pleasant situation because inside the truck, there are lots of vibration, lots of noise, lots of unbalance. It's unpleasant for the horses. And so this is why they might create negative association with the trailer, with the truck, with the transport in itself. And so basically the second time or the third time that they see the trailer or the truck, they say, that's what is going to happen. So they know that something bad can happen. And this is why they might show some behavioral problem. So behavioral problem is when basically the horses misbehave as a behavior which is not natural. And then we call them transport-related problem behavior. And we split them, or we categorize them depending on the phases. So some horses might just become more anxious, or they must start sweating and vocalize a lot as soon as they understand that they are going to be transported. So the transport may be, or the trailer is even not there, but you behave already, you put protection and so on, so they know that they are going to be loaded. And they are already anxious there. And often you have to remember that, we transmit our stress and our fear. And so we are stressed, we produce lots of adrenaline, the horses smell adrenaline, so if you're nervous, they get nervous. And then we have the loading phase, and the refusal to load is the most common transport behavioral problem. Then there are some other problems like scrambling, pawing, and then during the transport, or even at unloading, some horses might show some someone they refuse to unload, some other they might freeze, or some other they can decide to jump or run out the trailer. So for all these situations, clearly, the policymakers have decided that transport must be regulated. And so we have a specific regulation in Europe. I know that Switzerland is not part of the European Commission, the European Union. However, if you have to send your horses to any other member states, you are surrounded by member states, then you still need to have to comply with the regulation. And this regulation has been under revision, and the new one is coming, and our final recommendation will join. But clearly, in Switzerland, you have to comply with these are your regulation, the Animal Protection Ordinance, the Animal Welfare Acts, and those policy, basically, they give you the minimal requirement to keep the horses, including basically the transport. And in particular, for the transport, they give you a maximum journey duration of 8 hours, the minimum space allowance, which is 1.6 square meter for a medium horses, so 500 kilo horses. In Switzerland, you must tie your horses. And then basically, there is also the obligation to assess the fitness for transport. So what was the aim of the study? Then basically, we want to really gain a bit more data, and then we want to understand what people really do before, during, and after their journeys in Switzerland, and if they actually had any trouble with their horses due to transport in the previous 2 years. And then we tried to look if we were able to find association between these practices and issues. So I did this survey questionnaire in Australia, New Zealand, and many other countries. So with the help of Gilles, we translated the questionnaire in French and in German. And then basically the questionnaire was 23 multiple choice and one open-ended question. And we put online. So we generated a link, and I have to thank IENA and the Swiss Equestrian Federation, which actually helped us to spread the questionnaire. So many of you received an email. Yeah.
Excuse-moi de t'interrompre. Il y en a parmi vous qui ont rempli ce questionnaire, là, fin 2022 2, 3 Ouais. Okay.
Thank you so much. Yes, and basically, like, you were so nice that you fill it in, and then, so this is because of you, because your kindness, now we can share with you those results. So what we asked some background information, really simple, the gender, the age, the sector, and so how often those people travel, for how long. So we try to understand our population, basically. Then we ask what people usually do before, during, and after the journey. And then if actually they experience some issues in the previous 2 years. So our target population was really people who had moved their horses in the previous 2 years. So, and our reached population was 25,185 members enrolled in the the Swiss equine industry members. So also because we reached also the racing industry, and so we calculated that our significant sample size would be 379 persons based on this population. So we might even need less because we didn't know if all those people actually moved their horses. And we got 455 responses, and then we had to exclude 14 because actually there were people who didn't move their horses. And we had a great response rate from IENA. So again, thank you for actually have replied to the questionnaire. 32% is amazing response rate, and a bit lower from the Swiss Equestrian Federation. But still, we definitely had a good complete rate. So basically, those people do not only took the survey, but also they completed. So again, thank you. So basically, definitely we can say that our findings should be significant. So they should be representative of what really happened in Switzerland. So, who were our participants? The majority of them were female, with less than 50 years, and mainly involved in the equestrian sports, with an amateur relationship with the horses. So basically, you just spend your money on horses. I was one of you for many times. And this is really the typical situation of the equestrian world. You go around, you might see this, that there are more women of middle age or younger. And instead we had more men in the professional area, and the majority of them also, they were also from the racing. So the majority of those people have few horses, but overall we found that the majority of the people in Switzerland in the equine industry, they have less than 30 horses. They still travel quite frequently, we have basically 22% of the people saying that they move their horse daily. So transport is really part of your life. And 30% actually weekly, and they move the majority 1 or 2 horses, and probably we should also think about all these single horse movement that happen and how we can actually make it better for the horses, and over short distance. I guess Switzerland is small, it makes sense. Then we tried to see if there was different trend between amateur and professional, and basically you can see that clearly professional manage more horses, they move more horses together, and they also travel longer, and this makes really sense. And they were mainly involved in the racing industry. So, but what do Swiss people do before the journey? So what are their pre-transport practices? So more than half of the respondents assess the horse fitness for travel. I would warn you that is compulsory, so 100% of the people should do it. And it's really important thing to assess that your horses eat healthy before the journey. You remember that there is this motto: if you let a sick horse travel, you will end up with a sicker one. So this is why I keep call Jill. He is retired, but he can come to check the health of your horses before transport. And the other practices, then basically like, how they actually assess, they just they look at the horses and basically like, they check the behavior of the horses. I would say really keep doing it. Good practice is also like, check if there is any nasal discharge, because as I said, a runny nose before the journey may become pneumonia after, and check rectal temperature. Again, because like if the horse has a minimum fever, it might develop shipping fever. So 18% of the respondents said that they trained the horses before. And clearly, today we will suggest that is usually a good practice. So horses should be trained. And we had not enough really responses to really understand what type of training they used to do and so on. But some did basically like, habituation. So they habituated their foal, following the mother in the trailer, which is definitely good. Some other suggested different type of natural horsemanship, parelli, and so on. If those training methods were applied well, we don't know. That's the issue. And the majority of the people clearly move their horses in a horse box or horse trailer. So during the journey, horses were commonly arranged facing forwards or sideways, but 10% of the people said that they actually move their horses backwards, which is the favorite position for the horses. And clearly, 92% of the people tie their horses because that is the regulation. And but luckily, the majority of the people said that they were tied long, so the horses were able to put their head down. Remember that that's crucial, because if the horses spend all the time like that with their head up, it might develop transport pneumonia, or it's very likely that he will do if the transport is already longer than 8 hours. And so half of the respondents had a video camera inside the vehicle, and I would say this is a really good practice, because, if you see that your horse is in trouble, and you can stop the trailer, and you might, find a possible solution. If the horse is really, really nervous, you might calm it down, you might prevent injuries or all the disease that I said before. And then we said that basically only 2.6% of the respondents monitor the vehicle environment. And why this is important? So trailer may become really hot, okay? And actually I was surprised to see, and you will see later, that some horses in Switzerland, that for me it's a kind of a cold country, actually suffer from heat stress. Because really the trailer is always warmer than outside. And if you let the trailer in the sun, it might really reach temperature above 40 degrees. So horses start feeling hot already when it's above 25 degrees. So just keep it in mind. And it's good sometimes to have, now there are super cheap weather station you can put in your trailer, and then you can monitor the temperature inside, so you can decide is too warm, is too cold, should I open the window, should I close the window, should I take the rug off my horses because it's already too warm inside the trailer. So, and after the journey, horse fitness after travel was assessed by 80% of the respondents, really good. And even if they are not veterinarians, so keep an eye on your horses, and it's really good, like, if you check if the horse is eating, is behaving strangely. But again, I would recommend you to monitor rectal temperature. So, and do it even not only soon after, even for a couple of days after, because pneumonia might kick in up to 5 days after the journey. So where we can improve. So these were the problems that were reported. So 33% of the respondents reported to had experienced at least one health problem with the horses. You can say the injuries were really high, 72%, and this is in line with the literature. Transport-related injuries are really, really common. And some said they had diarrhea. As I said, 12.3% reported heat stroke, so heat stress. And then you can see then all the other problems are still there. And we had 4 horses which actually died due to transport, which still was higher than what I was expecting, mainly for the type of journey. Short journey, I wasn't expecting this type of results. Unfortunately, we had questions to know more about the cases, but the people didn't really give us enough details to have any strong conclusion on that. We were all curious, but not enough. And then we tried basically to do some association. So I want to point that association and not causation. So some of these association can also highlight good practices. So that is important to understand about this type of stats. So we found anyway that younger people had more trouble with their horses due to transport. And this is in line with the literature, because we know that we learn by experience. So more experience, we manage better our horses, we are calmer, so that makes sense. Then we had some of the situation where when people used to do pre-transport practices, this increased the risk, in particular when they were wearing protection. Probably this needs to clarify. So it could be that some people apply protection because they had already past injuries, or they know that the horses move a lot, or the owner is scared that the horses might get injured, and then so this is why they wear so many things on their horses. However, it's really important that your horses is used to wear protection, first of all. So you cannot pretend to put stuff on your horses 2 minutes before the journey, and then those horses, cannot even move because he's paralyzed by the situation. And then you have to consider that inside the trailer, the horses will move a lot. So my question is, would you compete with all those stuff? So the movements are really similar. So if you really put rugs and so many protection, then monitor your horses. So because it might really get too hot because it's moving. So you will not show jumping with a rug. And then also all your protection, they may move and then actually become a reason of injuries because the horse is annoyed, or the bandage and then they step on it. So this is why I always say, let a horse be a horse. So he might figure it out by himself, and probably all these extra things that we put are not really needed. And so then really important that you monitor the horses, because as I said before, if the horse is really agitated and or one protection fell down, maybe and you can fix it. And clearly then we had these issues that horses which had behavioral problem were more likely to develop also health problem. And this makes sense because clearly if the horse is a bad traveler, so he's actually really agitated, he's feeling the transport much more stressful situation than a horse which does travel well. And you have to remember that stress impairs the immune system. So basically means that really higher stressed or bad traveler, to say simple, they're clearly more likely to develop health problem after the transport. So we basically try to do also some particular study with injury and diarrhea, because we had more answer, and basically, the results kind of confirm. So really, like, 4 times the odds of ever experienced injury increased if the respondents were young, when they were transported in a truck, they were not monitored, and again, if they had transport-related problem behavior, and clearly similar, basically, for the diarrhea. Then have a look at this transport-related problem behavior. So 13.4% of the respondents said that they had horses, difficult horses, and we could not find any association with the background. So we can say there's a common problem in the Swiss equine industry. And you can see that the majority of the people had problem with loading, and this is in line with the literature. So loading is considered one of the most stressful phases of transport, but still some other had problem with traveling and preloading and unloading. So if we have a look at the results, basically we found that the odds of reporting transport-related problem behavior were 5 times higher if the respondents were women. And this, I would say, though, that is because women are able to recognize the problem. And that's important. Remember that be able to recognize that your horse has a behavioral issue and maybe call a professional to fix your behavioral problem is important. The majority of the men, as I said, they were also involved in the racing industry and have been part of the industry, so I know what I'm, kind of talking about. They just blame the horses as, a bad horse. Okay, so they cannot really see that the horse is actually suffering from a behavioral problem. They just think, oh, it's a bad horse, for not using another term, and that's it. And so those problems, increased when the people perform a pre-transport practices, again, maybe too many protection, or the horses was able to associate the situation. And 2 times when general health after journey was not assessed, so basically maybe those horses had also some health problem. Remember that, also a small health problem might lead to behavioral problem to the horses. If I am in pain, I'm not really happy to go to compete today. And I'm trying to communicate in some way that I'm not feeling well, but often we are not able to understand our horses. And this is why then they might start misbehaving. And again, clearly the association which I explained before. So in conclusion, this study documented the equine industry members' demography characteristic and the horse transport practice and issues in Switzerland. And compare with the literature, I have to compliment with you because anyway, you had less trouble than in other countries. And I guess this is also a merit of your regulation, which is much more stricter than in other countries. And however, I think we can still improve. There is always room for improvement. And as I said, we were able anyway to see some of the issues and where people should probably improve. And this is why I was saying that it's really important that all your horses are properly trained for transport, and I hope today we will understand what we could consider properly. That you always assess the fitness for transport. Remember, there's a mandatory in Switzerland, so you all have to do it. Then clearly, that if you have to tie your horses, remember that's really important that the horse is free to move the head down, so it has to be tied long. And if you have to use protection, remember what I told you today. So consider if the horses is wearing protection, keep an eye on the horses and on the protection. And definitely, like, you know, again, nowadays there are super cheap GoPro, put a GoPro and then you can monitor, or like, you know, there are so many tools now to monitor your horses that will be easier. So I think we all need, you know, if you want to read the article, you can download, because it's for free anyway. So, and if you have curiosity, or basically you don't, or I was not clear enough, and so you can have a read. And so our main point is that, you know, remember to assess the fitness for transport, and, you know, I guess we can all do something to improve. And among basically, like, you know, our recommendation, I want to also suggest you, if you really like reading, you can download also, or you can find this article. It's Welfare of Equide During Transport. Basically, probably it's the most long and accurate literature review on horse transportation, and we're done for the European Union. And based on this recommendation, now the new regulation is coming. And it was a 2 years work with other really knowledgeable and experienced scientists. So I think we did a good job. So this is why we said horses should be always trained to get used to loading and transport. However, what is really important, that's in Europe, we suggest 2 different methods to transport horses, depending if they are tamed or untamed. So unbroken horses, or untamed or unhandled horses, depending on how you want to use the term, they must be traveled loose. And better if they are in small group, maximum 4, or familiar horses. This is essential because a horse which is not happy to be tied, it just gets crazy to be tied, and it should be really able to move around. This is better if has somebody, you know, to split the pain of being transported. And however, there was a big limitation in the regulation in Europe, so no one could really understand if the horses were broken or unbroken, and there were just lots of misdeclaration. So now we develop a behavioral test, which is called this BAT, broken unbroken test, and it's an easy test that everyone can do, and then official veterinarian or police can really understand the level of tame. And again, we suggested to be included in the future regulation. Again, fitness for transport is essential. In the opinion, you find a new way how assess the fitness for transport, and when we suggest to not travel the horses, not move the horses. And again, horses should be loaded by handler with experience in a humane horse handling. And what I mean by humane horse handling, so a handling based on learning theory, which is what Constance explained you today. And again, when we say experience, it means people who are really able, they have the timing that, like, you know, I think Sebastian and Constance was speaking yesterday. So really able to release the pressure at the right moment, or, like, you know, to give some food if the horse is behaving. And timing, it's crucial. So I don't have to repeat. And I think, you know, since yesterday, there will be the most common words that you have heard today. And then, as I said, I personally hate cross-tying, so when the horses are tied short, because they cannot put their head down. And so I'm happy to say that in the future regulation is going to be banned at all. And the horses should have access to water and be fed at least every 4 hours. So it's actually better if you give hay all the way long, because, it's kind of anti-stress, like the horse is agitated, but he redirect a bit of his anxious on the feed, and he might have still a bad experience. About the hay, though, please don't put the hay right in front of the horses, because otherwise all the pollution, it can go straight in the lung. So put the hay basically at this high, so that actually the horse is motivated to put the head down. And so we have two things. So his gut is working better, and also we reduce the likelihood of pneumonia. So monitor the horses by camera, and again, we suggested more space. So we developed an equation for unbroken horses based on some study done in UK, and then the space depends on the weight. And instead for the horses which have to travel in single because they're broken, there are not enough studies, so it was a bit difficult to decide how much space. But as all the experts, we decide also by logic and by experience that the horses need at least 20 centimeters all around, because again, they have to put their head down. But if I want that they urinate, they also need space in the back. Otherwise, they might not urinate on the track because they cannot have the right posture. And again, they need to spread the leg to balance. So clearly, if they are like that, they cannot really balance. Again, it's a wrong belief that horses need to be transported really narrow so they don't fall. Actually, there is much more damage on your horses and bruises when they travel really narrow, because they basically bump all the way up. And you can imagine with all the bruises how happy they can be. And and again, what's really important, we have recommended that all industry members should be educated on animal behavior, handling, and welfare. And I think there is a workshop is in line with the European recommendation. So I thank you all for basically, I've taken the questionnaire, and I'm happy to reply to your question.